This is Eric with Astrology for Awakening, where we consider the current astrological aspects, the current planetary weather patterns, as it were, and we meditate on them as invitations for awakening. We're focusing on astrology not so much from the perspective of what's going to happen to me and is it going to be good or bad that's going to happen to me, but more from the perspective of what is being called forth from me in my current situation. What is life inviting me to open up to? And the energies we're talking about today are the Sun and Saturn. They're in a square. So the Sun is the center of the solar system. It's the source of life and radiance. And in our conversation today, I want to consider it as that source of inspiration and energy that radiates from the center of your being. Saturn is the principle of discipline, and it's that capacity within us to cultivate with a slow, steady, incremental process the skills that we need to realize our inspiration and to build the structures that can hold and give form to the inspiration. So the Sun is more the radiance, the undifferentiated life vitality, and Saturn is that forming process. And these two qualities in the zodiac as a whole, the universal circle of existence, they're considered to be polarities. The Sun rules Leo, Saturn rules Aquarius. They're opposite each other in the zodiac. They're not opposed, but they are a polarity that needs to be held with clarity and loving awareness so that it doesn't go too far one way or the other. And that's what I want to talk about, because with a square, it's very possible for the energy to shift from being a generative polarity into being kind of a conflict, whether that conflict we experience primarily intrapsychically inside ourselves as the struggle between and the conflict between the inspired nature of the solar energy and the slow and deliberate forming energy of Saturn, or whether we project that out into our relationships in our world. The dynamic between these two is archetypal. And so I want to talk about it from the perspective of inspiration and discipline. If we have a lot of inspiration, high inspiration and low discipline, it's like lots of solar, not a lot of Saturn. We're attuned to the solar inspiration, but we are not open to and integrating the discipline and the incremental nature of Saturn. Then we are what's called a dreamer, where we do have an inspired sense of mission, but begging the question, what are the structures and what are the skills that you need to turn that mission into a form, to form it in a way that will be able to positively impact the world, and sustain itself. You know, lots of people, particularly in the spiritual marketplace, who have a feeling of mission and who have an honest sense of inspiration and call. They're high on that solar energy, but are less comfortable with and less friendly towards the Saturn energy, which requires, remember Saturn is Father Time, which requires the gradual, incremental, time-bound process of building structures and cultivating skills. It's like a musician. If you imagine a musician who is inspired and wakes up, from a dream, as it were, and they have heard a melody and a message in their mind, and it just opened them up so much, but they don't have the chops, they don't have the skills, and they don't have the knowledge, and they haven't built the discipline or created the structures, like having bandmates, to be able to turn that song that they dreamt into something that can be shared. So they wouldn't be, in that case, Paul McCartney, right? Who, as is famously, who woke up with this dream and this melody and this message and these lyrics, but he has the chops. And because he put in the time, more than 10,000 hours, and allowed him to translate that dream image into a form of a song that's called Let It Be, which has continued to inspire millions. So that is where we're heading. We want to have both. So that was, inspired, but without the Saturn. What about the other way around? Low inspiration, but lots of discipline and structure. So that's not a dreamer, that's a drone. This is the image of somebody who has lost the plot on the inner guidance, but is still going through the motions. They're phoning it in, as it were, whether that's in work or whether that's in their exercise or whether that's in their relationship. Low inspiration with high discipline means we're imbalanced to the Saturnian side, and we're following the structures, following the rules, following the protocols, but we don't know why. We could be extremely productive in a sense, but there's no passion, there's no sense of purpose. We could be even successful in cultural metrics, but their soul is in agony and is falling asleep on itself. So there, in this construct, I can say that, this construct of the low inspiration, low solar energy, high Saturnian discipline, drone, it's a numbing and a life-draining quality. What happens if we have both low inspiration and low discipline? I'm calling that the drifter. They're not in touch with the mission. They don't hear the call. They don't recognize that there's a radiance within, a solar light that is seeking to be realized, to be embodied, to be expressed through their unique individuality. And they haven't cultivated any capacity or built structures in their life for even catching the hint of a purpose. So what is it like? It's the drifter, just moving along on the changing currents of the karma without an inner direction, which is the solar energy, without the inner direction, and without being willing to make the commitment, which is a Saturn word, the commitment to the practice, to the cultivation, to the personal development and skill development that will lead to mastery. It's just kind of whatever is happening, but that's not the flow state. That's not the flow state at all. In fact, the flow state requires high inspiration and high discipline. And that's where we're seeking. That's what we're looking for, to have high inspiration and high discipline. And another D word, we're going to be the Dharma bringer. The Dharma bringer. The Dharma, remember, is that we have that clarity and that deep sense of inner directed purpose. There's lucidity in the sense of the call. We get what's calling us. And there's a strong and vibrant felt sense of the light of the sun, the solar energy, the power of life itself moving through us and being expressed as us. And in order to be expressed through us and as us, we make the Saturnian commitment to have the knowledge, in an ongoing way, develop the skills and build the structures into our life, the time, commitments, the regular disciplines, the receiving of guidance, all of these structures that will develop us to be the steady and have the integrity, like a building that's built with integrity can withstand the winds of change. When we can cultivate the skills and structures, we have integrity that can be, so we can receive the call and continue to evolve our expression of that call. We're talking about the sun as inspiration and Saturn as discipline. When they're in a square aspect, there's a tension and there's a tendency to over-privilege one side or the other. So if we over-privilege the sun and under-privilege the Saturn, we end up being a dreamer. If we over-privilege the Saturn and under-privilege the sun, we end up being a drone. If we ignore both, we drift. What we want to do is to use our mindful awareness to notice, oh, there's some tension between those two, to hold that tension in mindful, loving awareness so that we can continue to mature our attunement to purpose, our attunement to inspiration, continue to mature our capacity to embody and skillfully express so that Saturn and the sun become partners in the realization of Dharma.